At FitFiliate, we're excited to announce the Affiliate Engineering Seminar. Coming soon to an affiliate near you, don't miss this exciting opportunity to create the affiliate of your dreams. Link in show notes or in bio to register. Welcome to the FitFiliate Podcast. And welcome back to the next episode of the FitFiliate Podcast, joined by the one and only Tony. How are you, good sir?
Floating head that I am.
I was being nice
floating
today.
head today.
You
I'm
did
still
say
walking, mostly because I left the treadmill under the desk, but we're gonna keep going for it. I'm only this, unlike last time though. I'm only like 7,000 steps into the day, whereas I think I was like 20,000 in by the time we did this last time.
something like that. You'd added quite a lot.
I finished that day, just for everybody listening, in case you were privy to that episode, and if not, you should go listen to it. I finished that day just under 40,000, 38,000 steps.
There you go.
I'm also sad to admit that I was sore from that.
Yeah. Well, it is a lot of steps, although you are not immune to taking a lot of steps, but that is a lot. So that's a big effort. So I don't know what's the bigger effort, the amount of time that you spent on calls that day or those steps to, that was the time.
Definitely the steps. The calls are the easy part.
Yeah.
Minus your call.
That's always the highlight of your week. That's what I thought. It's the
true.
highlight of mine.
Oh, yes.
Can't wait. But anywho, let's talk about more fun things right now. And this week I thought it would tie in nicely with a Instagram post we did a couple of days ago about everyone's favorite topics, employees. And the way we phrase that as a question to our followers, employees, are they an asset or an investment?
An expense.
Expense or an investment. So I can't even read it right. Expense or an investment. And, there's always discussion in the Facebook groups about, stuff. Always. It's a recurring theme that we've had from clients that come in. So I thought it was really worth touching on that today about, how we can frame the way that we look at our team for our long-term success.
All right. I guess we're here now. So we're going to go right into this one. This is probably maybe an exciting episode for everybody listening because you're right. Everybody does hate employees. I think it's weird, I think, because I don't know anybody who said, you know what I want to do? I want to go into business because I want to build an empire by myself. Like, it's just not really a thing that I don't like. There's no way that when you were thinking about what your business was going to look like, that you didn't think about having employees. In fact, I would probably wager that you were excited about the idea of having employees. It's just that the reality of having employees likely didn't measure up, right? And I think that's really what it comes down to, is that like most disappointments, the intersection of expectation and reality seems to be more of like a head-on collision as opposed to a seamless merger. And I think that it's not an affiliate related problem. I think it's a universally small business owner, maybe even large business owner related problem. And I think a big part of that stems from, a lot of the carte blanche sort of overarching business, cliches, which is like, employees are going to be your biggest line item expense. I think everybody tells you that, just like they tell you that like 90% of all businesses fail because they run out of money. Both of those are wrong. Just so we're clear, to anybody who ever says it to you, like your Uncle Ned, who has never owned a business aside from like his hot dog stand he tried to run once and it didn't work, but he's the one who's going to tell you all the business advice every time you come up with something, or anytime you don't want to talk about business at the family endeavor, but they're like, how's business? You're like, oh fuck, we're doing this again. It's good. Oh yeah, I bet. How you doing? And anyways, I digress.
Maybe that'll be next week's episode.
Maybe.
I think some of the conflict comes from as well when we talk about that having employees, expectation versus reality is never quite the same, is when it isn't what we think it might be, we make it a them problem, not necessarily an us problem, which, creates a lot of conflict in the relationship and in also then how you approach that. Even initially, it becomes a more combative kind of us and them thing, rather than turning the pointer around on yourself and going, well, how am I failing at this? What's the problem here?
I think to understand the problem with employees in general, you probably have to go back to I would guess we'd call it the conventional timeline of most small businesses, which is usually something to the effect of self-employment, right? Where it's some degree of probably mastery has led to some degree of self-employment, which has led to some degree of economic disposition, favorable or otherwise, where you're now in charge of this enterprise. And I'm assuming the point that the employee becomes a part of the conversation is that things have grown to a point where it's outside the realm of possibility for you to handle everything, or you've realized that you have no freedom in this thing. And so in order to take a vacation, have a sick day, go to your kid's graduation, or insert whatever thing, you're going to need to have a right hand or a left hand person. And so usually it's the first hire, right? It's the second hire. And really that usually looks like, hey, want to help me do this thing, right? Or something to that effect. And then you're met with an entire new skill set of development, which is like, whoa, I'm really good at doing what I do. Turns out I'm not really good at teaching other people how to do what I do. And I think, as a complete sidebar to this conversation, it's important to think about this even in terms of like fitness, sports in general. Like a lot of people think like if you wanted to be good at basketball, you should go hire like LeBron James to be your coach. And LeBron might be a great coach, but I can tell you that statistically speaking, he's probably a terrible one. Right. But his coaches and the people who he went to are probably likely the people you need to go to. And as it applies to building your business, you need to think about it not in terms of how good you are at what you do. You need to think about it in terms of how somebody else helped you get to the point of being as good as you are at what you do. And so that's a secondary part of it. But before you even get to that point, though, I think, or if you're at that point, you're probably going to have to come back even further because we have to go back to the beginning of it. And I know the point of this conversation is about our employees, assets or the expenses, but they are absolutely a necessity, regardless of which income or expense category they fit into. They will be a truth in your business, just like taxes. Right? So there's just no way that you can run the business without it. Although I'm sure there's probably been many nights in your life being like, you know what, this is a lot. I'm just going to pare down the business till I'm the only one again. Okay, that seems like a great idea until all of a sudden, no graduations, no sick days. No, shit. Need to have an employee, right? So we have to go back and you have to figure out, you got to remember the dream, right? You have to remember what it is that you were trying to build, what it is that you were trying to create. And as it applies to an affiliate, you have to figure out why your affiliate needs to exist. And spoiler, if it's just to sell, provide, and do a CrossFit, this conversation doesn't really apply to you. It could and it should. I just don't necessarily care that much about talking to you. And that's a bit rude, I suppose. But the point of this conversation is that if you want to build something cool and you want to build something unique and something that's identifiably and observably yours while using the methodology of CrossFit, this is the conversation. Because inside that, your ability to create futures for other people, both in terms of service and as your clients, but also as your employees and your team members, that's the coolest part of owning the affiliate. You just can't deny yourself that reality.
And it's looking at, and you're right, looking at that as the whole picture of like saving and changing lives from more than just a burpees and thrusters perspective.
Sure.
Like you have the opportunity to help somebody, maybe their dream is to coach at an affiliate or to they don't never want to proceed down the track of owning their own facility, but you can help them live their dream and create a future for them that's better than anything they've ever known.
For sure. And it's, I think of all the things that I've done and all the that I've owned, the coolest part about them has always been the people that got involved in it, not so much the business itself and the money that it transacted. Right? It's always been about the employees or the teams or the futures and those people. Those are the people that you can remember way more than you remember any single one of your customers. And so, in keeping with this conversation, so we don't veer off in the emotional side of it, and you start thinking about, you get back to that dream, you start thinking about what that looks like and how many people are on your team and what that team looks like, and take away your learned experience. Like if you can strip yourself of that and you can get back to your ability to dream, meaning don't let past experiences dictate future outcomes, right? And you can get back to that dream of being like, oh, I'd have a coach that did this, and I'd have a provider that did this, and I'd have a person who does this. Like, think of those things. And the reason I want you to think of those things is because what you're thinking about is these identities, right? These core people, these core service providers, right? And so if we can build this team and we can think about this ideal scenario, magic wand conversation, the point of you thinking about those people would be pretty simple. They are going to create opportunities and value for other people, right? So like if we're talking about a hypothetical team, you've got a therapist who is in the front office, you've got a head coach, you've got multiple assistant coaches, you've got maybe you've got an on-staff weightlifting coach, you've got all these things. The point of each one of those people, I would assume when you start creating this idea, is that I'm going to have this person to do these things. I'm going to have this person to do those things. This person's going to do those things. And by things, I mean make money, right? Like the reason I want to have a therapist is because we know that it's an integral relationship into CrossFit. Like if we had that person there on staff, it'd be much better. If we had a doctor on staff, it'd be much better. And the point is that we'd be able to charge for those things. And so the reason I say we got to start back at this is because if we can start there, it's pretty clear. An employee is an asset. They massively increase your ability to make money. They're not an expense, meaning they're not a line item liability that you have to pay for just to maintain operations like you do, say, your utilities, right? Like you have to pay for them because they got to be on. You have to pay your rent because you got to have a place to do it. You have to pay your employees because someone's got to run the classes. But now that we stepped into that bee's nest, that's exactly how most of you think of your employees. They're like a necessary evil that I have to pay for, and they're ungrateful. They never want to do their job. They don't do it as well as they need to do it. They don't take any ownership. They don't, help the business. They got their hands out. They're just asking for paychecks, and that's all they care about. And then I'm going to tell you to turn that hand that you're pointing at around and look at those fingers that are pointing back at you, because you created that reality. And this is when everybody will tune out of this episode.
Yeah. And having lived that, it is true. Like you start to think like, I'm just paying to have time off. Like, why am I paying to have time off and be able to not be here? And it's costing me money, where if I did the class, then it's zero cost, which is a whole other conversation and a whole other episode. We can get into the tin tacks of why that's not the case. But it's, I just am paying you to not kill anybody for this hour. And then wondering why we have a revolving door at the front door and why nothing is as good as it should be.
I think employees fall into two camps. They fall into they can either take responsibility, or you can give them responsibility, or you can abdicate responsibility. And unfortunately, as it applies to most small businesses, the vast majority of employees fall into the abdication category, where we want to hire somebody to give them the things that we don't like to do, or that we're sick of doing, or that we don't have the time to do, or we just don't want to coach the 5:30 a.m. class, so we give them that person. And so we want to unload that responsibility. And then what ends up happening, it goes to shit. And what happens? You got to solve the problem, because no matter what, the responsibility falls back on you. But if instead of hiring somebody to abdicate responsibility to that person, you hired them to give them responsibility and to take ownership when those things do break, and they're going to break because humans, they will fix the problem. They will develop the problem because it's their problem. When you hire an employee who you abdicate responsibility to, and you're the bakery and the oven breaks, they're going to call you and say, Lisa, the oven's broken. I'm like, did you try to fix it? No. You don't pay me to fix the oven. Well, yeah, but you're there and I'm home. Yeah, so I'm going to need you to come in and fix the oven because you don't pay me to fix the oven. Right? But if you gave somebody, they're the head baker, or their job is they're the sourdough baker of your bakery. That's their whole identity. They make the sourdough items. When the oven has the wrong, moisture content, what are they going to do? They're going to change the moisture content of the oven, right? They're going to change the temperature. They're going to change the mechanics because their job is to produce the best sourdough bread. Those people have responsibility. The other people are just like, sweet, oven's broken. That means we can go home. Can't bake bread. Can't be here.
And sometimes we employ people on the basis of we want to abdicate responsibility, but we assume they should take responsibility. And they don't even know what they're taking responsibility for. Like, they're like, well, I didn't know I was supposed to fix the oven, but okay. And we start to transition to giving them responsibility afterwards, and there's been nothing set out clearly. There's no expectations, no why behind anything. It's like, use your common sense. It's like, well, that's not necessarily the way to convey that.
Yeah, I mean, well, a lot of that comes down to the transfer of energy that is money, right? So as soon as we give somebody money, the thing that we're doing is being like, hey, I gave you money. So in exchange for that money, don't call me when the oven's broken. Right? But they don't see it that way because they don't. That's not why they were getting the money. They were getting the money, in their opinion, because they showed up for the hours they were told to be there and do the exact task they were told to be there. And if something falls just on the outside of that task, I wasn't paid to do that, right? And like this basically sums up, comically, what happens with every single employee. But from a legitimate standpoint, it comes back to a skill set. And that skill set is usually the weak point or the overlooked part of employees, because as a person who is really good at what they do, who becomes self-employed, who then becomes in possession of a business, they didn't really probably address or develop the skill set that was team development or leadership, right? They didn't really become a person who was worth following because they kind of probably lived out on an island of independence, right? They were kind of just really good at what they did because they followed their own path, apprenticeship to mastery, whatever. And if you're going to build a business, that changes things. Being self-employed is great. It's probably better than being employed because you have some degree of control. But owning a business is a completely different thing, because the moment you decide to own a business, it is no longer about you. Right? It's about the business, and it's about whatever the business needs. And every business will need one thing, and that is the ability for, well, it's really two things, but one of those primary things is for a person to be really, really good at recruiting talent. The other thing is going to be finding capital, either their ability to ask for money or to bring money to the business. If you have those two things, your business really can't fail. But most businesses are missing one or both of those things, and really they're both innovation problems, right? So you have to take an objective look at your quote unquote team and ask yourself, are they a team or are they individuals? Are they in leadership roles? Are they in responsibility roles? Or are they just given expectations? Or are they given tasks, right? Are they working together for a common bond or a common goal rather? Are they contributing to something? Do they have agency? Do they have all the markers that are important milestones of a team? Or are they just asking for their paycheck? Right? And if the answer is they're just asking for a paycheck or any of those other things, you haven't built a team, right? You've just abdicated responsibility to a bunch of individuals, and that's still better than trying to do it yourself. But don't be surprised when your employees are expenses. But if you can shift that conversations to assets, what's great about that is that for every dollar you give them, they should, in theory, bring up to about $10 back in a perfect employee relationship.
And I don't think, and I know that wasn't a concept I'd thought about, prior to being coach, but um, I don't think a lot of owners think about it from that perspective, and the power of. And I know that we did an earlier episode about weaponizing your team, and we use that term a lot. But the power of bringing a team together that is truly engaged, takes ownership, has responsibility, and is empowered to act. Understanding that the results for that are huge.
Hmm.
But I think that's lost a little bit.
Well, there's no denying the power of a team, right? I mean, Navy SEALs get all the credit they get because they are highly effective teams, right? They're not individual mercenaries who go do it. There's different people who do that, and they're probably very effective at what they do. But when you need big things done in short periods of time, you bring in highly effective teams. And your ability to produce, create, and curate those teams is a direct correlation to your both trajectory in business as well as your potential success.
And I think that having that reframe is really powerful, to even the way that you can view when things do turn to shit and go wrong is giving you a reframe to handle that in a better way, rather than just going in and, that's it, I'm going to sack you all, and, I'll just do everything myself again. But going back in to go, okay, how can I, turning that finger back on yourself, how can I teach and lead more effectively? What here? Where is the gap?
Well, if teams or employees are a truth of business, and if they are a truth of business, they're obviously a universal truth. They're a struggle of business. Like every business owner complains about them to some degree. Why would you sign up for that as a business owner? Like, if you know that that's going to be an inevitability, like you don't just be like, this 5th round's going to suck, right? Like in the workout, you find a way to mitigate that, right? You whether you change the way you do the first 4 rounds, or you put more time into the skill work so that the 5th round gets easier. Like you don't just be like, I really don't want to get to that 5th round. Like, obviously, if employees are a necessity to a business, and they are, like, there's just no way around it. Why wouldn't you, instead of complaining about them and pointing fingers at them, step back and say, how can I better improve this situation? How can I better improve this relationship? And if you could do that, I don't see how you could, or would, I suppose, continue to complain about employees, because you would at that point be like, I'm the constant.
But I think along the journey, it kind of gets overlooked. It's kind of an afterthought. It's like, oh yeah, I'm getting busy now, I'm going to need somebody to help me. But also, you kind of go into it, or maybe it was just a Lisa problem, but you go into it going, well, I'm going to make this is going to be better. Like the people who work for me, it's going to be amazing. We're all going to be best friends. It's going to be great. And I'm going to be the coolest boss ever. And you go into it thinking that I'm not going to be like experiences you've had, but we don't actually think about the tin tacks of like the reality. We just get caught up in the excitement, emotion of the dream. And then as we get busier, we're just tacking people on to the sides as we need them. It's like, hey, Tony, you like coming at 5 a.m. Maybe you could run the 5 a.m. class. It's great. And we just like sticky tape all these people to the sides of this bus. And it's like, hang on a minute. We've got more people just stuck randomly that are actually helping the bus go forward. And then by that time, you've got this whole steaming pile of a mess of bodies and attitudes and expectations. And it's like, I can't unpack that now.
So if you can go back and you could build a dream team, and it's a dream, it's not a real team, it's a dream team, I think that it's a good starting point. I think that if you can go back there and come up with an idea of who you would like to have, you can take then an objective look at who you currently do have, and then how that reality came to be. But that kind of almost brings it to an end of the conversation of assets versus expenses, because no doubt about it, every employee should increase the capacity or the capability of the business at least 2 to 10 fold. So it's at least a a 50% return on investment for most of you guys. It's just a matter of how do you return on that investment? How are you doing the due diligence part of it? Because if you're investing money and you're not getting the return, but everybody else is, then what you're doing is what's wrong, right? And so if we know that employees are a necessity in terms of getting to the milestones that you will need to be able to measure yourself as a success, and they are, but you're not able to get there, but other people are, and they are, then the question is not, why are your employees bad? The question is, why do you struggle with employees? And if you can focus on that part of it, the asset versus expense conversation becomes much less important. And the better conversation becomes, who are you? Right. And I think this is why this brings us to this part of the conversation, which is the part that no one really wants to pay attention to, which is the reason why employees are the constant conversation in every complaint forum that exists anywhere on the interwebs, is that they, much like leads these days, are the essential, the essence of distraction. Right? There's just no way around it. We know we can be endlessly distracted if we so choose by complaining about our employees, and if we spend our time complaining about our employees, we can overlook and avoid the thing that we probably should be complaining about, which is ourselves. And that's, I think, really where, Fit Affiliate comes in. And one of the things that we talk about quite a bit is that if everybody's the asshole, you're the asshole, right? And I don't mean that in a negative sense, more so a comical sense, but it's the truth. Nobody is out there offering to upgrade you. They're attempting to do so through the ability to layer on complexity and systems and procedures and features and this and that, but nobody's really upgrading you from an operating system perspective. And that's the thing that has to happen. And one of the easiest ways to decide, hey, am I the weak link in my business? Am I the one in the way of this success? Am I the one who's ruining this thing? Is just take a look at your teams. If you have dysfunctional teams, it's a pretty good mirror.
Yeah. And it's, understanding that, when we talk about the difference between coaching and, the gurus who give advice, is if I'm so busy giving you a template to operate from, and this is what it should look like, but I'm sitting over here going, well, shit, it doesn't look like that. And I've tried to tell everyone this is what it should look like without having anyone ask me questions about what I'm doing in the process. It's only when you're coached that we help you turn that finger around and ask those hard questions of yourself that no one wants to ask, but it's in the bounds of that coaching relationship that not only does it get asked, but then space is held for the answer rather than just go do the thing I told you to do.
I mean, I could give you the world's best coaches review sheet. I mean, in theory, just take the one from the L2. I could give you the world's best interview sheet. I could give you, insert whatever you want it to be in here. The world's best onboarding sheet, the world's best this. And all those things would absolutely handle the extremities, right? They would handle all the extrinsic things. They would tell you how to how to critique somebody. They would tell you how to hire somebody. They would tell you how to fire somebody. They would tell you how to do all those things. But they wouldn't tell you one thing, which is how you're going to interact with every single one of those things, every single one of those systems or downloads. And that's an important piece that's missing from every conversation. As we go looking for help in our businesses, we go looking for help with our symptoms. I don't have enough customers. I'm going to get this thing. I don't have good employees. I'm going to get this thing. I don't have this thing or that thing, and I'm going to download them or buy them. But they don't ask you one thing, which is, how do you behaviorally interact with these things? Or even better, how does your behavior continue to represent itself as a problem inside these things? Right? Because if you have a turnstile for an employee or directory, then something you're doing is replicating itself. If you can't get new customers or you can't keep customers, something you're doing is creating that problem. If you can't insert anything, you are the problem. And I think this is the part of business that is both great and terrible at the same time. Like we've talked about this a lot. The power of a relationship in your life to help you, the power of money, the power of a business. Those are the things that really strip you raw. If you let them, and if you're lucky, they will strip you raw so that you become a better person, right? And when dealing with a business, the hard part about a business is that there's so many things you can distract yourself with. There's so many things to fix, address, read, research, download, perfect, reprint, revise, you name it. It's really difficult to focus on the simple thing that's not easy, which is me first. And that's the whole reason that Fitbillion starts there. The other stuff is super simple because like you can download and Google pretty much any answer you could ever possibly need. I mean, ChatGPT will probably tell you what it is at this point. But what you can't do is change how you interact with the entire company. And that's the thing that's got to change.
And it is that implementation. Like you can download all the answers, and we've seen this time and time again where you can give somebody all of the answers that they seek and they still don't move forward because they're lacking that implementation step, that accountability, that to help push forward, and that prod to like, hey, you said you wanted to be over here and you're not doing anything to get there. So what's the stoppage here? But it's that where most people fall over is, and I was guilty of it. I had every time that in a coaching call we talk about a particular system or something that would make it easy, I'm like, oh yeah, I've already got that. Never been implemented, but I had the biggest folder of systems and processes and answers. But they're just stuff. But they're just gathering. It made me feel like I was doing something when I was gathering that. But then, if I'm not implementing it, what was the point of that exercise?
And employees, teams in general, they all boil down to one thing, which is leadership, right? And that's like the buzzword. And even that in and of itself is essentially a symptom. It's very easy to focus on, I need to become a better leader, which is great. Do that. Read all the Simon Sinek books you could possibly read. But they're going to tell you one thing. Leadership boils down to one simple rule. To be a good leader is to be someone worth following. That's it, right? And it's not about your ability to, be effective and engaging and creative and this and that. Like those things all help. They're all great attributes, but you just need to be somebody worth following. And here's the trick to that. In order to be worth following, you have to be in possession of a cause worth fighting for. And in order to do that, you really have to have a very, very clear and justifiable mission or just cause, right? And so we start everybody there for that reason. And it's because we could chase complexities and distractions till we're blue in the face. If I let every single client come to us and be like, Johnny and Joey and this and that, they're doing this, they're doing that. All those things are great, and we could fix them every single week, but we're going to fix them every single week. We have to start back and say, okay, all that stuff, all those problems, all those sleepless nights, all that staring at the ceiling, why the fuck do you do it? What's it worth? Why are you doing it? And for most people, they'll probably, once you dig to it, they'll probably spit out some downloadable, Googleable word salad of, of a mission statement. But it's not true. And if it's not true, you can't possibly be a person worth following. It doesn't pass the sniff test. When it's authentic, though, and it's pure and it's real and it's yours and you believe in it, it's undeniable. And I think you have to kind of start there with it no matter what, because if we just focus on the other stuff, we can download the master class on leadership and you can go to whatever you want to do. But until you have created something worth fighting for, something worth creating, something worth building, it's hard to be somebody worth following. And until you're somebody worth following, you're never going to have a team behind you. You might have a handful of individuals who like you, owe you, or otherwise, but that's not the same thing as building a dream team who quite literally will help you accomplish a dream.
Mm. And I think that often plays into some of the imposter syndrome and insecurities we feel as, the affiliate owner or business owner is like, well, who's going to follow me? And, we're not talking about being, the second coming of anything, but it's, people want to believe in something. Like if you really give your team a chance, like they want to believe in the work that we're doing here.
Mm.
And if they don't believe in that, it makes it very easy for it to just become transactional. I turn up, I do this thing, you pay me this, great. Let's all go about our day. Rather than, everyone holding each other to the standard and holding each other accountable, because this thing means more than anything and is super important.
Yeah. And most affiliates don't have a reason to exist.
Mm. Well, they have
True.
CrossFit's reason or whoever's
It's
programming
exactly right.
that they identify with. That's
The
their
absence of why is what's become wise. And in affiliates that don't have a reason to exist, they exist because CrossFit needs them to exist. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think there needs to be these outposts of support and subordinates to CrossFit's mission and vision, because they can't do it themselves. They're not out on the streets, and we don't want them to be on the streets, and they don't want to be out on the streets doing it. So these gyms need to exist. But the whole point of this thing from the beginning was always your ability to take the methodology and do something great with it, do something new with it, something unique with it. And I think because CrossFit was always so good at creating such a compelling just cause and such a compelling why, it was so much easier and safer to partner with their cause than there was to lean in the discomfort of the vulnerability of creating your own cause. Because the reason why most people don't want to create something of their own is that it can fail. It's much safer to try to bring somebody else's thing to existence than it is to go all in on your own thing and potentially be found a failure.
And that's a confronting thought for people, is no one wants to feel like that they're embarking on something and then at the end they have nothing to show for it.
This is not an affiliate owner problem, right?
No.
And I think we talk about this a lot, but it's a business problem in that most businesses, 86% of them, are line item extensions. We've all done it. We've all walked into a diner and said, this diner is amazing. I want to own a diner like this one day. And sometimes people do that. They try to replicate that exact same diner. And there's nothing really wrong with that. It's just that from an innovation perspective, there is no room for innovation. When you move into a situation like that and you attempt to be a replication of others, a line item extension of other businesses, a copy of those businesses around you, nobody's innovating. They're all just attempting to use best practices. And as it applies to having and creating a team, it's incredibly difficult to have loyalty, consistency, continuity, agency, contribution, you name it, from this staff of people when they can quite literally go work at any gas station in town, right? Like if you're just a gas station, like we need lots and lots of gas stations, but I think we all agree, like not a real justifiable cause for a gas station to exist, except for they're like, hey, cars need gas, right? And that's still a noble thing. It's just that if you work at a gas station and all of a sudden your boss is an asshole, you just go to the other gas station. You already know how to do the job. Same job, same gas pumps. Maybe it changed a little bit. Maybe it's Mobil versus Exxon, but like it's the same thing. But if you were a completely different gas station and you were, drive through, car wash, this, that, you name it however you want, and your boss was an asshole, it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to figure out how to go work someplace else and be like, but I really like all this stuff here. I don't want to just go pump gas. Right. And I'm not telling you there's an excuse for you to be an asshole because you built something special. But the point is that teams need to get behind individual reasons to exist, something to contribute to. And if you're not giving that to them, they're not there. And if you're just creating line item extensions, line item copies of other businesses, don't be surprised when they feel like they work for the ecosystem, not the individual. And this is a big problem as it applies to both the customers who buy from you, because they think that like you're all the same, right? This is a problem with the coaches, because they're just like, if I don't like it here, I'll just go coach over there. Or if I don't like it there, I'll just go start my own gym and do the same thing. And like, there's no real thought as to like, hey, what am I going to do different with this methodology? How am I going to make my piece of the ecosystem observably and identifiably unique to our vision, right? What is worth following? What is worth fighting for? What is worth being a part of that I can create? Naturally, that means that you're going to have to be willing to fail, because you know what? Sometimes when you're like, the reason my gym needs to exist is these things, no one wants it. That's okay. Like, maybe you decide like you're going to, hopefully you don't listen to this, but I saw a Pilates CrossFit Instagram account, which is that's so weird to me. And I'm not sure how they do it, because it was in a different country, but you know, maybe there's a good chance people don't buy that. Maybe they do. I don't know. Who knows? Right? Maybe they're really, really successful because they are so weird that they attract their own mavens. The point is be prepared, be willing to do something great, but be prepared that like maybe nobody else wants to do it. But I assure you that if you can do something great, you can create something worth following. You can create something worth fighting for, and then you're somebody worth following. But if it's not the case, then you're just somebody worth working for. And worth working for just means you probably give them a paycheck, which means there's not really any loyalty to what you're doing. There's not any responsibility to what you're doing. And don't be surprised when a new offer or new opportunity or a better schedule or closer commute or new gym opens, that they just move to that one.
And that's the thing. We talk about that commoditization, which you touched on, is, you know, it's easy for clients then to go, well, CrossFit. I'm just going to go down to the one down the road. It's $5 a month cheaper, $10, whatever. Or, you know, they can find so many, not differentiators, the opposite to differentiators. My mind's gone blank, but to go, well, it'll just be the same there. So but I think that and I know we've talked about this on 100,000 episodes, but it's about being afraid to stand out. And that's why, you know, that was the issue for many years, and it probably still is in a lot of places, is like when affiliates set their pricing. Okay, I'm going to look around the room, see what everyone else is. I don't want to be the dearest. I don't want to be the cheapest. I'm going to be the middle. And they don't want to stand out. Nobody wants to be the gopher out of the hole because there's vulnerability and risk in that.
90% of businesses fail because they run out of money. That's what everybody says. That's the other lie. But it's 90% of businesses fail because they fail to innovate. That's all it is. A business only fails when it ceases to innovate. When a business stops innovating, it stops creating revenue. And when that happens, the well goes dry. And as it applies to this conversation, you trying to be a line item extension of other businesses is a recipe for a lack of innovation. And without innovation, there is no creation. There is nothing for people to get excited about and get behind. Every day is Groundhog Day. It's the same day over and over and over again. Your clients get bored. Your employees get bored. You get bored. And when you get bored, you stop creating. And when you stop creating, you stop making money. As it applies to your business and it applies to your team, until you get back to innovation, until you give them something worth getting excited about over and over and over again, they're going to start to get bored. You have to remain in innovation. And that's really all it comes down to. And that starts with going back to the beginning, remembering why you do what you do, and getting back to that so that you can remember how to build better and new products. But the real reason why innovation is so scarce in business in general is that innovation takes bravery. And most businesses are line item extensions because it doesn't require any bravery to copy somebody else. Because if yours fails and theirs fails, it was their fault. Innovation requires bravery because you're going to take a chance. You could look stupid. You could fail. You could get all these things wrong. But those are the things that are worth fighting for, because when you do something brave, and you do something new and exciting, that's incredibly fun to get behind. But when you become stale and stagnant in copies, don't be surprised everybody treats you the exact same way.
And, you know, it takes bravery to, as you said, to innovate and create, but it also takes bravery to admit that, like, I'm not good at this part and I'm not good at implementing and taking action. I'm good at having an idea, but I'm not really good at following it through. And then seeking out someone who can actually help you rather than just talk at you.
That's innovation too. Like the courage and the bravery to say, I'm not good at this, is the innovation that is necessary to change that. If, however, you say, I don't think I'm good at this, I'm going to go try to find somebody who is, and you try to copy them, there is no bravery there. There is no innovation there. It's just copying.
Copy and paste. And it's understanding that I'm not good at this and being brave enough to reach out your hand or to put up your hand because it means so much that I can't fail at this. This mission and just cause is so important that I got to fix this. Whatever this is that is not working for me, I need to find a way to have a solution because I cannot, under any circumstances, have this mission fall over.
Yeah,
so that's
somebody worth fighting for.
Awesome. And I think that's a lot of interesting insights that we've shared there. So if you are listening to this, please give us a subscribe on your favorite platform. Please follow us on YouTube for more of Tony's relaxingly hypnotic head
just
moving
blowing in the breeze.
Just rolling in the breeze. And follow us along on Instagram at Fit Affiliate for all of our social content and some things that will make you think and maybe even feel a little bit.
Love it.
All right. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's show. Please remember to like and subscribe on your favorite platform. And if you know an affiliate owner, a coach, or entrepreneur that would benefit from hearing our conversations, please share this with them. We love the feedback and support we have from you guys, our audience. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find all the useful links in the show notes. We would love to connect with you. Keep doing the great work.